Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Nicola Sturgeon claimed that the minimum price on alcohol was one of her proudest achievements, and she, sort of pushed it out and celebrated it as being working wonders for the health of people in Scotland. Well, of course, that's all a load of old rubbish. Firstly, the entire thing has failed, as we're going to see. And secondly, this was never about, any kind of altruistic, let's make people in Scotland feel better. It was because she is just a miserable, joyless woman who wants to spread misery everywhere she goes. And if she can get rid of a bit of party juice and just to, make people less happy and less able to enjoy themselves, then that's good by her. Well, the wee joyless toad has had an afternoon, I suppose, yesterday where there was no joy whatsoever. That must have pleased her no end. But as she sits today and looks at the papers thinking, phew, that was close, she'll see that yet again another pride of the SNP policy bag has been completely debunked, and in fact, minimum alcohol pricing is a complete failure, just like everything else that woman ever touched. Here goes. So, the minimum pricing has had no impact whatsoever on Scotland's worst problem drinkers. Nicola Sturgeon claimed the move to force up the price of alcohol was one of her proudest parts of her legacy, but a new study suggests it didn't reduce harmful drinking among problem boozers. What I love is that picture of a very large bottle of cider, and it says it's a sharing pack. If you know anything about the sort of people that would be buying that amount of cider in a single bottle, you know the last thing they'll do will be to share it. A new study has revealed the SNP's flagship minimum alcohol pricing policy has done little to curb harm to Scotland's most hardened drinkers. The controversial move saw cheap alcohol effectively banned in Scotland when it was finally introduced 5 years ago, following a long legal battle. Ministers promised it would reduce deaths, hospital admissions and jobless rates amongst the nation's heaviest boozers. And it has done, of course, no such thing. What it has done, though, is it's increased poverty. It's increased misery. And ultimately, that was the whole purpose of her doing it. Because she hates the idea that someone, somewhere, has got a smile on their face. It really upsets her sensibilities that somebody may just, for 5 minutes, be happy. Anyway, new research revealed today by the Sunday Post, this is yesterday's paper, suggests that the much vaunted experiment has largely failed. It found little change in the drinking behaviour of those whose consumption causes the most harm to society and who were supposed to be the original target of the policy. While the study did detect a slight drop in overall alcohol consumption, i.e. among ordinary Scots who did not have a drink problem in the first place, and that's only because they couldn't damn well afford it, not that they were problem drinkers, the authors conclude the lack of evidence for a decline in the prevalence of harmful drinking arising from minimum unit pricing is contrary to the model-based evidence that formed the introduction of the policy. The model they used was flawed because it didn't require experts. It was simply them in a meeting, probably around some gin, just pulling numbers out of the air. Owen Good, of the Centre of Economics and Business Research, said minimum unit pricing had failed to have the dramatic effect desired or predicted. He told the newspaper the policy had returned underwhelming results, and that's because they forgot one of the basic tenets of alcoholism. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It doesn't matter how much damage you do. People would sell children. This is what an addiction is. What they need to be doing is not punishing everyone in the country who does not have a problem, but targeting those who do and seeking help for them. Give targeted help to those who do have the problem, rather than punishing everyone else who has never, ever had a problem with this. Under the laws, all alcohol sold in the off-sales trade in shops and supermarkets must have a minimum price of 50 pence per unit. When it was introduced, it saw the end of bottles of wine for less than a fiver and boosted the price of a 2 litre bottle of strong cider from around £2 to 11 or £12. And of course, what happens there is immediately beaten, because what people do is they get in their vans, they drive south to the border, they go into the first Tesco's or Sainsbury's they find, and they just fill up. And then they drive north, and then they flog the same bottle that they've just paid £2 for a fiver. Got to cover the petrol and the expenses. Everybody's happy. The people who want to buy it, who want to drink it, aren't paying £12 for it, and the people who are doing the transporting up are making a nice little sideline. We know this happens. So what you've got is effectively prohibition in Scotland, and you've got bootleggers running it and doing the old bootleg jobs up across the border, south of the border, down Mexborough way, and up they come every weekend, vans filled to the ginnels with cheap English booze. Some believe the sudden surge in price is responsible for the skyrocketing number of other endings, as we say, pharmaceutically based people, because what happens is, given that the price of cider is so massively expensive, and that used to be the go-to for these people, whereas other things were relatively much cheaper in comparison, and that is why they have this massive problem regarding these pharmaceutical. You have to be very. I can't say the words. I'm not allowed to say the words. YouTube doesn't like it, but you know what I mean. Brown stuff and white stuff, powdery stuff. That's all sorts of things. All sorts of, potions and lotions and powders that come up. And they've got this massive problem with that, because as a direct result of pushing the price of what was previously a cheap and relatively harmless product through the roof. Anyway, when she left office after 7.5 years in March, 7.5 years too long, Sturgeon claimed that the minimum unit price is one of the policies she's proudest of. When you look at the uplift in the number of people who've suddenly ended their lives through problematical materials, that's what she is proud of. She's proud of having the worst problem of that sort anywhere in Europe. The woman is mental. At the time, leading Glasgow D campaigner Anne-Marie Ward described the claim as another questionable piece of spin, because of course it is. She told the Scottish Express at the time, the unintended consequence of the MUP, minimum unit price, has been that the street price, can't just say these words, is a much cheaper choice. You can get 20 pence of this instead. I mean, seriously, it's 20p. Rather than going and getting a 2 litre bottle of White Lightning or whatever for £1.80 or whatever it was, I can't afford that now. It's 12 quid. So what do? They go and get, one of these. That's great. 20p. Marvellous. Ping. Next thing you know, they're falling over like flies because this stuff's so cheap in comparison. And you can't put a minimum unit price on that stuff. Anyway, the study published in Public Health Journal last week examined the drinking diaries of problem drinkers in Scotland and northern England between 2009 and 2020, with the MUP coming into force in 2018. Introducing the MUP in Scotland was not associated with the reductions in the proportion of drinkers consuming at harmful levels. It's basically, not only was its intention to reduce the drinking a failure of the worst order, it increased the cost of this product to everyone who didn't abuse it. But it also saw a massive uplift in the illegal trade of things, and the corresponding massive increase in the number of young people carking it and falling over, dropping dead because of that. And that is what that woman is proud of. I don't think she should be proud of anything. I'm coming up. She was told quite some time ago that this policy probably wouldn't work because they were doing a very broad approach. They were targeting everybody, even though everybody generally wasn't the problem. What they failed to do was target the specific problem of those people that were the problem. And of course they can't do that because that takes intelligence, that takes critical thinking, that takes the ability to look at what problems are and completely analyse them. These are concepts these people cannot possibly do. They don't have that intelligence to do this. And so they reach for the one tool they have, the hammer of taxation. And of course, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And so it's just, let's tax it up and that'll make the problem go away. And of course, no, it didn't. It was another failure, another in the litany of many failures that the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon specifically have over the last 16 years. And she says she's proud of it. Well, let's take her to a Glasgow graveyard. Let's stand over a few of the freshly turned graves. Let's point to them and explain that these are the young people that her policy has put into the ground. And ask her then, is she still proud of it? Thank you for listening. If you like what you see in here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Definitely leave a like, that really helps with the algorithm. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, everything in moderation. Thank you. Bye.